I thought of bringing something to your attention. Now, yesterday I read part of the sutta to show you, if you are lacking mindfulness, why it's happening, to show you that it's a lack of faith that was actually hindering you, or the blockage. Anyone interested in knowing the full sutta? No, not really. Do you want to? No? Okay. So in summary, what Buddha says, even the ignorance is not without nutrient. So what's the nutriment for ignorance? It's the 5 hindrances. This is very, very important for you all to remember. The nutriment for ignorance, avidya, is 5 hindrances. So what is the nutriment for the 5 hindrances? The 3 ways of wrong conduct by your body, speech and mind. So they also not without a nutriment. So what's the nutriment for these 3 ways of wrong conduct? Lack of sense restraint. What's the nutriment for the lack of self-restraint? Lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension. And that also has its nutriment. What is the nutriment for lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension? It's the improper attention. So what's the nutriment for the improper attention? It's a lack of faith. What's the nutriment for the lack of faith? It's listening to the wrong teachings. And what's the nutriment for the wrong teachings? It's associated with the bad people. So Buddha actually then talks about, then he says, hence the association with bad people prevails, listening to wrong teachings will prevail. When listening to wrong teachings prevails, it will make lack of faith prevail. When lack of faith prevails, it will make improper attention to prevail. When improper attention prevails, it will make lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension prevail. When lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension prevails, it will make lack of sense restraint prevail. When lack of sense restraint prevails, it will make the 3 ways of wrong conduct prevail. When the 3 ways of wrong conduct prevail, they will make the 5 hindrances prevail. When the 5 hindrances prevail, they will make ignorance prevail. When ignorance prevails, it will make the craving for becoming, bhava tanha. Such is the nutriment of the ignorance. And then Buddha says the opposite side also. Liberation by supreme knowledge, too, O monks, has its nutriment. I declare it is not without a nutriment. And what is the nutriment of liberation by supreme knowledge? What do you think? I have spoken to you. What takes you to the final liberation? 7 factors of enlightenment. So Buddha says 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment too have their nutriment. What is it? The 4 foundations of mindfulness. Remember, it started from sati, samma sati, 4 foundations of mindfulness. So now you should be able to relate these things even to the others' teachings and see actually how they try to get you to enlighten or get into whatever not. But this is the path that Buddha is saying and showing to you. So It's the practice of 4 foundation of mindfulness that takes you to 7 factors of enlightenment, development of 7 factors of enlightenment. And then Buddha says, this 4 foundation of mindfulness also not without nutriment. What is the nutriment for that? The 3 ways of good conduct by body, speech and mind. So we are talking about sila here. What's the nutriment of the 3 ways of good conduct? Restraint of the senses. So what's the nutriment for restraint of the senses? Mindfulness and clear comprehension. So if you didn't have that, you won't be able to see what's going on, what's happening. And then Buddha says, so what's the nutriment for the mindfulness and clear comprehension? Proper attention, being able to pay your attention properly. Proper attention too has its nutriment. It is not without a nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the proper attention? Faith. Faith too has its nutriment. What is the nutriment for faith? Listening to the true Dhamma. So listening to the true Dhamma also has its nutriment. What is it? Association with superior people. So it comes down to that point. So then Buddha says, hence with association with superior people prevails, it will make the listening to the true Dhamma prevail. And when you listen to the true Dhamma, the faith will come. And then when you have the faith, the proper attention will come. And then when the proper attention is there, you can maintain your mindfulness and clear comprehension. When you have that, the restraint of the senses becomes possible. And when you have that, the 3 ways of good conduct comes. And then when you have that, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, to practice that becomes possible. And then when you practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 7 factors of enlightenment will come. And when you have the 7 factors of enlightenment, they will make liberation by supreme knowledge prevail. Such is the nutriment of that liberation by supreme knowledge, and so it prevails. So Buddha actually gives a very nice analogy here. Just as when there is heavy rain high up in the mountains and the sky is rumbling, the water flowing downwards will fill up the clefts and fissures in the mountains. And when these are full, they will fill up the little pools. The full little pools will fill up the lakes. The full lakes will fill up the small rivers. The full small rivers will fill up the big rivers. And the full big rivers will fill up the great ocean. Such is the nutriment of the great ocean, and so it becomes full. It's a very nice analogy for you all to understand. And there's another one important sutta actually for you all to make notice of. This sutta is called the Birth, Old Age and Death, and that's on the Anguttara Nikaya chapter 10, sutta number 76. Because there's some points to note here. Buddha says, if, O monks, 3 things were not to be found in the world, the Tathagata, the Arahat, the fully enlightened one, would not appear in the world. Nor would the Dhamma and discipline proclaimed by him shed its light over the world. So what are these 3 things? What do you think? No. Birth, old age and death. But since these 3 things are to be found in the world, the Tathagata appears in the world. The Arahat, the fully enlightened one, and the Dhamma. and discipline proclaimed by him sheds its light over the world. This is why Bhante Punnaji keeps bringing your attention to the problem of this existence. See how Buddha is saying it. There's a problem in this existence. Birth, old age, and death. Because of this, the Tathagata comes to this world, and Buddha is saying this. Many people haven't really realized this. It's because of that Buddha has come to be, and he sheds it, shares the Dhamma and sheds the light. And then Buddha says, without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon birth, old age and death. What are these three? Greed, hatred and delusion. Without shedding those three, you can't abandon the birth, old age and death. Without abandoning these three things, one is unable to abandon birth, old age and death. Without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon greed, hatred and delusion. They are Buddha says personality view, it's a Sakkaya Ditthi, translated here, skeptical doubt, Vicikicca, and clinging to rules and vows, that's the Silabbata Paramasa. So what are we talking here? Sotapanna, the qualities of the Sotapanna. So if you want to abandon greed, hatred and delusion, you must have the right view or the harmonious perspective. You must penetrate into the Dhamma to be able to do that. You have to understand the Dhamma. And then what happens? You can't understand the Dhamma without abandoning three things. What are those three? They are improper attention, pursuing wrong ways, and mental lassitude. Can you see? Now these are the practical parts that you all have to really take into account, because these things becomes very important, because you have to practice these things, you have to develop these things. You need to pay attention to these. So it's improper attention, pursuing wrong ways, and mental lassitude that prevents you from understanding the Dhamma, prevents you from shedding that Sakkaya Ditthi, Vicikicca, Silabbata Paramasa. Without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon improper attention, the pursuing of wrong ways, and mental lassitude. What are they? They are unmindfulness, lack of clear comprehension, and mental distraction. So you have to work on them. Without abandoning them, you can't move forward. So you have to abandon your unmindfulness, lack of clear comprehension, and mental distraction. Without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon unmindfulness, lack of clear comprehension, and mental distraction. They are disinterest in seeing the noble ones, disinterest in listening to their teachings, and a very important one, a fault-finding mentality. Very important to understand that not being able to content is a big hindrance, is a big stumble block. But if you have eyes, or your mind is always focused out there, it is an imperfect world. So if you are focusing out there and you have a discontent mind and you don't have much metta and understanding and all this and that, then you will start to see faults all over the place, and it will only give rise to ill will. That's not going to help you. So you all have to actively try to get rid of this fault-finding mind. This is why Ajahn Brahm actually teaches a magic word, he says, this is good enough. This is good enough. He says, practice, this is good enough. So then you won't keep finding faults. You will be very happy and content. That removes a big stumble block. Okay, then Buddha goes on to say, without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon lack of interest in seeing the noble ones, disinterest in listening to their teachings, and a fault-finding mentality. They are restlessness, lack of restraint, and immorality. So you can see why the relaxing comes, why it becomes important. When you're restless and it leads you to actually have no restraint in your faculties, and then you won't be keeping your sila. When you have a disturbed mind, you do disturbed things when you're not calm. But if you learn to relax, to settle, and that actually helps you a lot to focus within and to keep your precepts, to restrain, and to do all that. See how everything is linked. And then Buddha says, without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon restlessness, lack of self-control, and immorality. What are they? Lack of faith, unfriendliness, and laziness. So again, it's coming down to that faith part. Lack of faith, unfriendliness, and laziness. Without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon lack of faith, unfriendliness, and laziness. What do you think they are? I spoke about them yesterday. Buddha says disrespect, stubbornness, and bad friendships. That's the bottom line. So then actually there's another step going further down. Without abandoning three things, one is unable to abandon disrespect, stubbornness, and bad friendships. What are they? Shamelessness, lack of moral dread, and negligence. Hiri-ottappa becomes important here. If you don't have hiri-ottappa, then it's a problem. And negligence, if you become very careless and you don't take responsibility. That's where the whole thing starts. So Buddha says, there is a person, monks, who is shameless, morally reckless, and negligent. Being negligent, he cannot abandon disrespect, stubbornness, and bad friendships. Having bad friends, he cannot abandon lack of faith, unfriendliness, and laziness. Being lazy, he cannot abandon restlessness, lack of restraint, and immorality. Being immoral, he cannot abandon disinterest in seeing noble ones, disinterest in listening to their teachings, and a fault-finding mentality. Being a fault-finder, he cannot abandon unmindfulness, lack of clear comprehension, and mental distraction. Having a distracted mind, he cannot abandon improper attention, the pursuit of wrong ways, and mental lassitude. With mental lassitude, he cannot abandon personality view, skeptical doubt, and clinging to rules and vows. Troubled by skeptical doubt, by Bodhicitta, he cannot abandon greed, hatred, and delusion. And without giving up greed, hatred, and delusion, he cannot abandon birth, old age, and death. By abandoning three things, one is able to abandon birth, old age, and death. What are these three? They are greed, hatred, and delusion. By abandoning them, one is able to abandon birth, old age, and death. So Buddha actually goes in to say another round. And then Buddha speaks about, by abandoning three things, one is able to abandon disrespect, stubbornness and bad friendships. They are shamelessness, lack of moral dread and negligence, and that sutta stops there. And then he starts the opposite round. There is a person, monks, who is conscientious, scrupulous and diligent. Being diligent, he can abandon disrespect, stubbornness and bad friendships. So it's an important quality for you all to develop. Having noble friends, the Kalyana Mittas, he can abandon lack of faith, unfriendliness and laziness. Being energetic, he can abandon restlessness, lack of restraint and immorality. Being virtuous, he can abandon disinterest in seeing noble ones, disinterest in listening to their teachings, and a fault-finding mentality. Not being a fault-finder, he can abandon unmindfulness, lack of clear comprehension, and mental distraction. Having an undistracted mind, he can abandon improper attention, pursuit of wrong ways, and mental lassitude. Being without mental lassitude, he can abandon personality view, skeptical doubt and clinging to rules and vows. Being free from doubt, he can abandon greed, hatred and delusion. Having abandoned greed, hatred and delusion, he can abandon birth, old age and death. There you go. So those are the qualities that you must actually pay attention to and learn to develop. When you get this book from the library or if you buy it, you must make a chart. I had this chart but I don't have it here. It takes time actually to write, all three and pointing from which one starts what trouble, and when you do the opposite way, you can see very clear connection with all this. So you all must put these into writing and make it something that you can easily understand, like short notes, and very clearly you can see what you should be developing, what you should be abandoning. And that will help you to progress in this path. Okay. So, is there any questions from this or from last night? No, okay. And how many of you read the Aryamagga Bhavana level 2 book? At least, up to cover to this Samvara Prahana. Please take time to read it, because this is what you should be doing. If you have forgotten or if you don't understand, either you can ask me or please read the book. If you can read it up to the Anapanasati Sutta. Okay. You don't have to take time now, maybe after lunch or whatever. Maybe we'll do a meditation this morning. You all can read the book at your leisure time. I think we should start doing the walking meditation. Did you all do walking meditation before I walked in? No, huh? Yes. Do your walking meditation while you're walking. Okay, we'll do some walking meditation. So if anyone wants to take a break also, take a break. We'll do walking meditation until 10:30. So there's nearly 20 minutes, 25 minutes. and then we do a sitting. So whoever wants to go to the toilet, you do your walking meditation while you're walking there. The others, we can do it in here. Okay, first few minutes we start the walking meditation with just watching your natural breath and just counting how many steps it takes for an in-breath, for an out-breath. Start there. So stand straight, keep your back straight. Maybe my table, we can pull it back so some people can do their walking meditation here.